We love music. You are locked into Six Towns Radio.
I've got a special guest on the line right now. You'll all know his name, Dave Berry. He's been in Stoke loads of times with the Solid Sixties tour. He's doing it at the moment, and he's joining me now. How are you, Dave? You all right?
I'm very well, thanks. Yeah, I've got good memories of the Stoke area. In the very early days, many people would probably remember, I think it was the George Hotel in Burslem that we used to play as a rock venue. There was quite some good rock venues around the Stoke-on-Trent area in the mid part of the 60s.
Yeah, well, we're actually based on the same road as the George Hotel. It's at the bottom of the street from where I'm.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Fabulous venue. It doesn't have many live acts on now. It does a few comedy nights on, but still a historical building.
Some of the things that happened there were comedy nights when we did the shows there.
I can imagine with you on stage, with your great stage presence that everyone talks about. I've seen you live, and you have got that stage presence. Still got it today. A lot of people have copied you. A lot of people have said, you know, he was the guy I always looked up to, which is a great honour to you, isn't it?
It is great. I mean, because I think when you speak to any musician, the first and foremost, we're there to entertain the audiences and our fans, but it's always good to have the accolades coming from your fellow musicians. I mean, that's really the wonderful thing for me. I mean, recently I've done some, great shows. I've just done some shows with, Roger Taylor from Queen, and, to hear someone like that, of that, status, to say that they always liked what I did. He was from Truro in Cornwall, and they say, well, you were in my first band. I used to sort of watch you on TV, and then the punk bands in the 70s, and people like that. So, yeah, it's great to be, knowing that your fellow musicians enjoy what you do.
Oh, of course, yeah. And this Solid 60s tour you're doing, you're not taking in Stoke this time, but you're very close. You're up the road in Buxton and Wolverhampton, so we sit nicely in between. And it is a great show. This time it's with Mike Pender, the Merseybeats, Wayne Fontana as well. What is it about the 60s that everyone who was there just wants to recreate on an annual basis? It's just a massive phenomenon, isn't it?
Yeah, I think what it is that if you look back on the history of pop music, going back to the 50s, the early 60s was really the first time that we had our own interpretation of American pop music. The years before us, there was Marty Wiles and Billy Furies and Cliff Richards, but no disrespect, they were at the time sort of extension of the variety club circuit.
Yeah.
In the early 60s, all the different bands had their own different styles. The Hollies were different from the Rolling Stones, and the Rolling Stones were different from Wayne Fontana. Searchers were different from the Pretty Things. They all had our different styles, and I think people look back on that and think, well, it was a good time. And then there was the greatest songwriting team of all, like the Beatles, and the Stones still touring as I am 50 years on.
Yeah, this year is your 50th year, isn't it? 2013.
It is, yeah. I could be doing my hometown of Sheffield at the opening night of the tour, so I'm very thrilled with that, because it's 50 years since I first played there with the Rolling Stones, and then I played there with Dusty Springfield on our first tour, myself and the Cruisers, very first tour with Dusty Springfield. So it's very thrilling to have kept the standard up 50 years on, to be playing the big venues. That's the most important thing about being a musician, is not to lower, in my case, my standards, so I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah, and these tours, they come out in the droves to see him, and I bet you get people coming up to you all the time saying, I saw you in 1963, I saw you here, I saw you there, this is my 10th time of seeing you, because people do come out to see him. It's like something they really look forward to.
It is, that's how it goes. I mean, but that's the nature of pop music. I mean, if I see people that I liked in the early days, the first thing I will say to them is that I had the pleasure of meeting Dave Brubeck, the jazz pianist who sadly died recently, and my wife, who was Dutch, who, when we met him backstage, the first thing you say is that she said, I saw you in 1960 in such a venue in Amsterdam, and that's the nature of it. And it's great, because we all remember the first time we saw our favourite artists, and you have to remember that when you're a performer on stage, that these people, some people might never have seen you on stage, and that's, that's a strange thing. Someone will say, I liked your records, but I never saw you on stage because I got married you know, just as the Crying Game was coming out or something, and then I was bringing up my children, and so this is the first time I've been able to see you, and so it's a great thrill to be a live performer and get these sort of people chatting to you about their memories of when they've seen you or when they hadn't, you know, didn't have the opportunity to see you.
What's different now, just before you go on stage at a gig now, than when you went on stage in the 60s? Is there any more, you know, is there any sort of ritual that you go through, or...?
Oh, I have a couple of shots of Jack Daniels.
That's what I wait to hear.
It's probably more relaxing now because of the quality of the sound equipment and the stage crews that we're working with, you know, sound and lighting and backstage crews. You know, you can walk on with absolute 100% confidence that everything is going to be first class, whereas right the way through the 60s and 70s, you know, equipment wasn't as good as... It's a bit like a car, really. If you were driving a car in the 60s and 70s, you know, you didn't really know whether it was going to break down, did you? I don't know how old you are, but that's a good way of looking at it. But now, you know, very, very rarely will your sort of, you know, the equipment on stage malfunction or something like that. So it's a great confidence when you walk on stage now.
Totally. You've mentioned you're a Sheffield lad, famously. Sheffield has got a great pedigree of musicians still. You know what I mean? They're churning them out like by the dozen. Bands coming out, Arctic Monkeys, Reverend the Makers, they're all coming out of Sheffield still. Is anyone you actually like from nowadays, or don't you get a chance to listen to new music?
Oh yeah, I mean, I presented a show on Radio Sheffield just on Boxing Day, actually, and I got some of my favourites. I got Richard Hawley.
Oh, yes.
So I knew Richard from being a lad, because he's the son of a guitarist friend of mine in Sheffield. So I knew Richard from way, way back. And then I like the Sheffield bands. Unfortunately, one or two of them disbanded because they never... I used to like the Long Blondes with Kate Jackson was the singer. And then the Little Man Tate, another band from Sheffield.
Yeah, I like them, yeah.
So there's many of the younger bands I've always enjoyed, because I've kept my interest in music. You know, I'm not one of these people who looks back and just, you know, thinks that the 60s were the be-all and end-all of everything. I think there's good music now. In fact, probably better music now, because it's just such a diverse amount of music about, isn't there, really, from every different area.
Yeah, I asked a very similar question to Graham Goulman, who you've worked with. You and Wayne Fontana have worked with Graham, haven't you?
Oh, yes, in fact, Graham, 10cc, the whole of 10cc, produced and wrote a track I did at Strawberry in Stockport in about 1970 called Chaplain House, which was one of my favourite tracks that I recorded. So I've known the band from the beginning, yes.
Yeah, I asked him and he still keeps his finger in, which is right. You also mentioned the Dutch connection that you've got, but there's another one, isn't there? The fact The Strange Effect was the biggest selling single over there.
Yeah, that's right. It's the Ray Davies from the Kinks song. They never recorded it. There was a version from the BBC suddenly appeared a few years ago, but they never recorded it. So Ray, because I've never been a songwriter, I've always relied on other people to write the material. So Ray came along with some TV studio like Ready, Steady, Go, and just said, you know, I've written this song with you in mind. Because as he says, they have a similar delivery. You know, we sing in sort of we tend to slide up to the notes, Ray and myself, you know, so we have a similar style of presentation. So with the song he wrote for me, Strange Effect, suited me absolutely perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been so interesting to talk to you today, Dave. I really want to thank you for coming on.
That's great. Thank you very much for that, okay?
Okay, would you like to introduce a Crying Game for our listeners? That'd be nice.
I would. We're going to take you all back now to 1964. I think it was about September 1964, when this suddenly appeared, The Crying Game.
Thank you very much, Dave Berry.